The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Luke.
Glory to you, Lord.
Some Sadducees, those who deny that there is a resurrection, came forward and put this question to Jesus, saying, "Teacher, Moses wrote for us, if someone's brother dies, leaving a wife but no child, his brother must take the wife and raise up descendants for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers. The first married a woman but died childless. Then the second and the third married her, and likewise all the 7 died childless. Finally the woman also died. Now at the resurrection, whose wife will that woman be? For all 7 had been married to her." Jesus said to them, "The children of this age marry and remarry, but those who are deemed worthy to attain to the coming age and to the resurrection of the dead neither marry nor are given in marriage. They can no longer die, for they are like angels, and they are the children of God because they are the ones who will rise. That the dead will rise, even Moses made known in the passage about the bush, when he called Lord the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. And he is not the God of the dead, but of the living, for to him all are alive." Some of the scribes said in reply, "Teacher, you have answered well." And they no longer dared to ask him anything. The Gospel of the Lord.
Praise to you, Lord Jesus Christ.
One of the great beauties of our Catholic faith is that it holds both vocations, marriage and virginity for the sake of the kingdom, in the highest esteem. And the Church sees no opposition between the two vocations, but rather a beautiful, mutual, profound complementarity, that both vocations are to support one another. So someone who embraces celibacy for the sake of the kingdom, a priest or a religious, if they don't have an attraction for and a love for married life, there would be concerns about their vocation. And if at one time that young man or young woman, before becoming a priest or a sister, if they did not desire marriage, there would be concerns about the authenticity of their vocation. Because it's precisely that sacrifice of the great good of marriage that bears fruit spiritually. It's one of those mysteries of our faith, one of those paradoxes. Like just as we believe that it's in dying that we live, or it's the least who will become the greatest, or it's in giving that we receive, we believe that virginity produces spiritual fecundity. That the more someone embraces their call to celibacy, the more they will bear spiritual fruit for God. It's why Mary, the mother of all the living, the most spiritually fruitful person of all time after her Son, is the Virgin of Virgins, because she sacrificed herself so totally for God so she could bear all these spiritual children. And the call to virginity or celibacy, it's that continual witness to those in the married state that the end of their marriage is union with God in heaven. That their marriage is always supposed to lead them to eternal life. But the opposite is also true. That those in the married state, they support those priests or nuns living the celibate life so amazingly. In my 8 years as a priest, you know what's been my constant call to holiness? It's been looking at married couples. Seeing the way a husband and a wife are called to continually try to deepen their love. That they have to forgive over and over and over. It's this continual gift of self. And so the closer I become a married couple, the more I realize, okay, if they're giving themselves to their spouse that way, gosh, what am I called to do for my bride, the church? Or when you see these families, trying to raise kids and pouring themselves out continually, sleepless nights and all the sacrifice, and you go, I could never complain as a priest. Right? With my married couples in my parish bearing kids, I can't say, man, my life is so hard. You don't know what it's like. And so it's this call to pour out myself for my spiritual children. And in marriage, the more someone grows in their faith, the more they realize that there's no conflict in loving their spouse and loving God. That really the more they love God, the more they're called to love their spouse. And they love their spouse for God and for His sake. And the more they empty themselves for their spouse, the more they're giving themselves to God. And the less they love their spouse, the less they're loving God. Today, the saint we celebrate very beautifully, she's almost a combination of both, oddly. This young maiden, Cecilia, when she was a girl, she made a vow of virginity. That she would give herself to God alone. Now, her dad, who was a tribunal, a nobleman, he arranged a marriage for her. He forced a marriage, and she couldn't refuse. On the day of her wedding, when she was alone with her spouse after the ceremony, she revealed to him then that she had made this vow. Right, and you can imagine being her spouse, right, in anticipating the wedding night, right, and hearing she's made this offering of virginity, and she said, there is an angel that guards my virginity always. And he said, if you show me that angel, then I'll believe you. And she said, you cannot see him until you believe and are baptized. Then you will have the eyes of faith. He made the decision to study the faith, and he was baptized a short time later by the Bishop of Rome, the Pope Urban. And when he returned home, he came into the room where his wife was kneeling in prayer, and he sees an angel hovering over her, and in his hands he's holding 2 crowns. One for her and one for him. And they lived out the married life while remaining celibate together to give themselves totally to the building up of the church. He would bury in hiddenness the early martyrs. He would bring them to the catacombs. And on one occasion, her husband was caught and was martyred for the faith. She converted so many people by her preaching that she too became a martyr of the church. She's one of the few individuals that both priests and religious and married couples can pray to assist them in their vocation. To fulfill their vocation with all their hearts. Because the end of marriage and the end of virginity for the sake of the kingdom is heaven.